Upon the violent death of children and teachers and grocery shoppers, there are not adequate words of consolation or outrage. There are not ideas or concepts or explanations. So the first thing we have to do is go ancient. We have to go into the old ancient prayers in a language we don't even know. We have to go to the ancient truths and trust our mortal and our mourning hearts there. And it begins, y'all, with tears. I mean, we need to stop reading more of the news and just let ourselves cry deeply. We have to feel that last embrace of a parent and a child. We have to feel that last breath of a teacher. We have to feel that panicked fear in a grocery aisle, and you just let your tears come out. And the ancient Psalms, they know that place intimately, that place of fear and horror, and they're all intentionally organized, and they begin with tears. The beginning of these ancient tears. Tears flood beds. Tears make eyes go blind. Tears fill faces. And in these ancient prayers, they know the horrors, they know the hurt. And so they first sing about the flow of tears. And then we come to this image. This image, God collects our tears in a shriveled leather bottle. It's in this ancient song that we now call Psalm 56. It's a prayer about desperate horror. But there's this image of God catching our tears in this shriveled bottle. Nod is the ancient Hebrew word. Imagine God holding that shriveled leather bottle up to each of our eyes and collecting the tears and filling and swelling that bottle. What do you think God will do with all of our suffering? And what will God do with all of that salty expression of hopelessness and fear? And what will God do with all that compassion and release collected in that bottle? The next thing that happens in these ancient prayers is this image of the purification of hatred. Hatred is this natural reaction that our spirits have to evil. Hatred is the allergic reaction our spirits have to evil. Hatred is the spiritual inflammation that is necessary, but it needs to be purified. The destruction of families is evil, and so we hate it. The cause of desperate fear in children is evil, and so we hate it. And metal that's fashioned to rip apart human bodies is evil, and so we hate it. And lies and murder and trauma, and they're all evil, and so we hate it. And all throughout these ancient prayers, we see the names and the descriptions of evil, violence, and weapons, and power, and racism, and ignorance. We see, and we name, and we hate. But hatred, this natural, spiritual, allergic reaction to evil, if it sits up against the human heart, if it sits up against the human heart, it becomes toxic. And so it needs to be purified. It needs to be molded and released. It has to be purified, molded, and released. Perhaps, I think it's got to be the most beautiful and lovely prayers ever, maybe in all history. We call it now Psalm 139. It's a prayer about being home and loved in every imaginable situation, every imaginable fear. But there is this really bold line near the end of this Psalm 139. It says, I hate with a perfect hate, which means, that means that we hate in a way that releases the toxin. It means that we turn this natural reaction over into the unending power of God. We choose against the evil, and we choose completely for the love. Now, this looks sort of like taking all of the hateful names and all the hateful images and all the hateful horrors, the guns and the hurting and the desperate fear, the rage, the anger, the helplessness. It's like taking all that and pulling it up off of our hearts and dropping it into the hands of God. You drop it into the hands of God and you watch as this gross mass is molded and it's shaped and it's sculpted into something that is good and something that is of life. Let me say this. Cry first, but let your tears be collected. And hate clearly, but let that hate be purified and molded. Don't hold either your tears or your hatred on your own. And I say this because the world is too small for anything but the truth, and the world is too dangerous for anything but